What attributes have you found within yourself when you have been faced with the fight, flight, or freeze? We've all been there. And I'm going to share the attributes that I found within myself, and I would like to share that with you today. How I found the warrior spirit within myself. A warrior does not give up on his dreams. He adapts to the changing realities. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And here we are, the podcast, The Running Addict.
Powered by Riverside FM.
The shadows of the night laces up his shoes.
We created this.
You step on the track, shedding all his blues. Bottle's been a burden, but the road feels so free, chasing dreams like the wind. Finally breaking through, racing through the pain, finding that new way.
Put in a few
Every mile's just a victory, pushing through the grave.
descriptive words.
He's a running addict, chasing hope on the way. Through the storms and the struggles, it's burning to flame. With the speed of his spirit, he's racing for life.
Yes.
In the light of the dawn, he's cutting through space. He's turning to the wheel, I feel the fire inside. Turning, searching hard, he's another night. As demons fade away, it roars of life in the heart of the race. Now he will thrive. Love on the horizons, shining bright each day. No more running from shadows, he's ready to stay. He's a running addict, chasing hope on the way. Turn to the storms and the stubble is burning to flame. It's the speed of his spirit is racing for life. So light and dawn, he's cutting through space. Rising like a champion, he knows he's not alone.
Isn't that just a great song? I love it.
With his love and a finish line, he's finally home.
This finds you well. Good afternoon, everybody. This is The Running Addict, and we're here today to share some more stories and be vulnerable. I'm here today to share with you how I found my warrior spirit. I was approximately 10 to 11 years old when this story takes place. My sister and I was up one early morning and decided we wanted to go out to the store and get us some Now-a-Laters. We lived off of St. John at the time on a street named Quincy. Just shortly right off that intersection, maybe 4 or 5 houses down. We got up that day and was roller skating and decided to go get these Now-a-Laters. Now, there was lots of kids in the neighborhood at that time. I was still fighting, trying to find myself because I was so scared to stand up for myself at this time in my life. Of course, we're still with the monster, the third husband of my mother. And I referred to him as the monster because he was the worst. He kept us very fearful for our lives and made us feel inferior with everything we did. I questioned my own opinions. I questioned my own thought. And at the time of my life, at this age, what brought me strength and energy was our heroes. And at that time, hell, who did we have? We had Arnold, we had Sly, we had Lundgren, if that's how you say his name, Russell, and many others. I was a product of the time of the late 70s, early 80s, and what that consisted of was movies. Movies were everything. And for me, it was a way to escape. So there was a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and a lot of us boys looked up to these individuals, these movies. That was our talking topic, if you will. I think it was every boy's topic, whether it be Transformers, He-Man, Thundercats, Voltron, that's what it was, Voltron. I mean, you name it. We had so many things that allowed us to relate to these warrior spirits that we've seen being created in entertainment. And I definitely seen that in my life, and I definitely grabbed a hold of that, if you will, and tried to create in my mind a place of comfort, a place of strength, because the house definitely wasn't a place that you could do that. And if you did, and it was the wrong time, meaning just the wrong circumstances, whether, my mom and the monster was high, or drinking, any other kind of circumstance where they were positive, but you just wasn't sure, is the point of what situation you were in. And of course, at an early age, I became hyper focused on paying attention to those energy levels in a room, the aura in a room, and then I would control my energy so I didn't put off anything that would trigger responses from him. So, of course, we've talked about the performer, so that came into play. But this day that we were up roller skating, that was one of our favorite activities. We had steel wheels and polymer wheel skates, you name it. I can't remember how we obtained all these things, whether it be presents from grandparents or the thrift shop or yard sales. I just knew that we had a lot of skates, and we enjoyed going outside, whether it be roller skating or bike riding. And I was new to this area. The monster, when he came into our lives, we were living at my great grandmother's house in the downstairs apartment, if you will. We always called it the basement. It was a basement, and it was not completely finished. But when he came into our lives, that's where we was, and we were moved into this 3-story home off of Quincy. And then shortly thereafter, we moved over to Colorado, off of Colorado. No, I believe it was Denver. It's right behind Bud Park. It's just right on the other side of Bud Park. I'm just trying to remember the exact names, which is really not relevant. So on this given day, some of the boys in the neighborhood were out. And they were very mischievous, much more, what would you say, much more proud in their presence of their behavior. They definitely had the bully mentality. That was their protection. I haven't developed that, or hadn't developed that in my life, nor did I want to, but I did want strength. I remember very clearly, we go out, we had been roller skating, we decided to go get this candy, Now or Laters. My favorites were the mystery mix, I believe it was. It was the green and purple ones. I believe it was grape and apple. And we're going up to the store, and one of the young men, I can't remember his name, but we got along from time to time, but there was definitely this aura about him that I kept myself reserved around him, because I could tell he was a bully. He was a scared little boy. Much like myself, I was very scared, but I just didn't put that on people. I didn't try to capitalize on other people's weaknesses. So my sister and I are walking up the street, and he's off to the side, and he comes up to us and starts to pick a fight for whatever reason. I can't remember what even the topic was, and it's really not the point. It was just in his demeanor to always feel powerful in the situation that he was in. I could tell that about him. And of course, I was with my sister and I have to protect her, but at the same time, I'm fearful of this young boy because I had never, yes, I'd been beaten and, demoralized, and many times in my young life I froze. But on this day, I remember saying to myself, I've had enough, especially from people the same age as me, my peers. I've been dealing with this grown man who was addicted from everything from heroin to Demerol to, hell, I don't remember all the concoctions, but anything to shoot up, yes, and of course, alcohol. So I just remember telling myself, I've had enough from at least my peers. And I definitely wanted to protect my sister. I protected my sister prior to this from the monster, at least in the ways of shielding her. I had not yet physically tried to attack this man yet. So he's starting some kind of chaos within us, and I can't remember what it is. But I basically flight and take my sister with me. And he's still running his mouth, boys that age. I had quite the potty mouth myself, I remember. Because of course that's what our parents were doing. Most of the parents at that time and the friends that I had or acquaintances, most of the family environments were very hostile, especially in that part of the city. And I'm not trying to stereotype. I have never felt more safe in my life than in that part of the city. It's when I lived in the suburbs that the fakeness, if you will, really was rampant. So people were more two-faced. In the city, you usually were dealing with people that were very forthcoming, meaning they didn't beat around the bush. So I was very safe in the city in that aspect because I liked people not being fake. I really enjoyed the authenticity of people, even if it was negative. I did find that out later in my life, that I much appreciated that. But I just remember later in my life being comforted in the memory of the city and how safe I felt with the real friends that I did develop later. But this young boy, back to this, was never my friend. We leave this situation in the flight mode, and my sister even was kind of concerned with me because she knew and I knew I was going to have to deal with this. We get to the store, we buy our Now Laters. The whole time I'm giving myself a pep talk, telling myself, you're sick of this, right? Well, then do something about it. Stand up for yourself. If I may be so bold, talk to myself in one of my mentors in life today, David Goggins. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. I admire the man. We had similar lives, very similar lives. So I was giving myself this pep talk the whole time to the store, and my sister didn't know it. She might have seen it on my face, and I'm sure she did. And for the first time, I wasn't concerned with protecting her. I was concerned with standing and making a stance, a line in the sand. So we leave the store, and I see the look on my sister's face, and she's excited about the candy and chips and soda that we get or whatever we had in our hands. But I just basically remember the Now Laters. We walk out the store, and I look directly at her. I even had to build up the courage to even announce this to her, and I knew that once I did, I wouldn't go back. That's something that I learned very early in my life that once I commit to something, I have quite the ability to follow through. Maybe not every single time, but I know that's one of my strengths. There's no doubt about it. I looked right at her and I told her, I said, when we walk back down to the house, if he's there, that boy, I'm going to finally do something about this. Because there was many other situations with this kid. The very first day we moved in, I remember there being something, and I can't remember what, but there was a group of the boys, and they, of course, new kids on the block. Oh my gosh. Knock on wood. We were the new kids on the block, and of course we're going to get picked on. So again, I had enough. And I looked at her and I said, when we get back down there, and if he's there, I need you to go home and I need you to go get the monster. Now, I didn't say that. I said his name, of course. I'm trying to leave names out of this. She said, okay, what are you going to do? I said, don't worry about that. You just go get him. And of course, he was there. And she knew what to do, and she went to the house. And I can't remember every little detail of what happened because I kind of lost myself. And it was actually one of the very first times that I realized after this situation that when I do those things, I can't remember everything I do, which was a great concern later. I found out that, I need to be able to control this. But I walk up to the young man, and of course, he's running his mouth again. I do remember that, and I'm getting in his face, and I remember his eyes getting as big as saucers because he'd never seen this side of me yet. And he basically backs down and goes on about his way. And I don't know how long this encounter went on. I just knew after that moment, shaking, adrenaline pumping, and then coming to the realization of what I just did, meaning maybe not remembering everything I did, but knowing that I stood up for myself for one of the very first times to a person of my peers, a young man approximately my same age. And the empowerment I felt. There was a lot of fear. I do remember that because I'd never been here before. I didn't know what was going to transpire. Were all the kids on the block going to come after me now? Was he going to hold a grudge? Were we going to get in a fight eventually? We went to Northeast Middle at the time, and that was no picnic. I barely went to school. I can't express to you how many riots there was and how many riots I'd seen at that school, which is just nothing that anybody that age should ever see. Seeing kids my age hitting each other with baseball bats. I seen a kid my age get stabbed no more than a few feet in front of me. No one should ever see that kind of stuff in a school they attend. So I walk in the house wondering where my sister was because she never shows up with the monster. And she's off doing her thing. Kids, I don't know what happened. I was still kind of coming down, shaking. Probably had some tears. I can't quite remember. But I remember walking in the house, and of course the monster says, "Where have you been?" And I told him. And it was one of those situations to where I was surprised because, yes, addictions make us something that we're not, or brings forth something to the forefront that should maybe never be there. Meaning a good human could be an addict, and when they're on their drug of choice, it alters that good person in them, and you can't see them at that time sometimes. I remember learning that very quickly with this individual because there were many times he was a wonderful man to us. But I shared this with him, what had just transpired, and no, he didn't say good for you, but I just remember him kind of giving me that attaboy. And I was very proud of myself that day. And I finally embraced something that I could use and have control over these situations where we lose ourselves and we don't know whether to fight, flight, or freeze. And I was done freezing. I was so much done freezing. It is the most helpless feeling to freeze. And yes, some of us, that's one of the attributes that get us through those situations. And I'm not downing any one of the three options. But I knew on that day, I'm done freezing. And I knew I had the flight down. But for the first time, I knew I could fight. And it was so empowering.
The shadows of the night, laces up his shoes. He stepped on the track, shedding all his blues.